What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a special edition season gaming video. Tonight, we're going to be doing a roundtable / spoilercast on Shadow of the Erdtree, the absolutely incredible expansion for Elden Ring. And I've brought with me a few of my semi-close friends. They're not my closest friends, but you know, they're good. They're generally good people. You know what I mean? So anyway, you've got a whole cast of characters here. We're going to have actually a couple more joining us here shortly. But we're going to talk about all things Shadow of the Erdtree. Now that it's been out for a couple weeks, I think many of us have been spending an awful lot of time with it, probably too much time if we're being honest. And, you know, it's been an absolutely amazing ride. So we've been waiting to do this to make sure most of us could finish it and to let people kind of settle a little bit with it. But now we're ready to kind of talk about it. So, guys, I think rather than going for like 10 minutes of introductions here at the beginning, why don't we just get into it? And then at the end, we'll obviously give everyone time to kind of talk through where they can find each of you. Anyway, I think that, you know, why don't we kick this off start with Elden Ring as the foundation, right? So like prior to Shadow releasing, or hell, even since Shadow released, what was your experience with Elden Ring? Did you play it at launch? How much time, like total, have you put into it? How much did you enjoy it? Is it a game you love, a game you're kind of indifferent to? Open thoughts here. And we're gonna have to figure out the round.
Alex, I'll go after Alex.
Yeah.
Okay.
So. We might as well raise the hands. So yeah. Yeah. Elden Ring would be like what I would consider my breakthrough with the Souls games, because the Souls series had always been one that always reviewed highly. I knew there was a fervent following for them, and I was like, I want to keep trying this. It would never click until Bloodborne sort of did, but obviously Bloodborne is kind of different in some ways compared to the rest of the Souls series. And Sekiro completely destroyed me like within like 10 minutes. I was like, nah, I'm not doing this. Elden Ring was the one I was like, this looks so cool. Everyone's like absolutely raving about this. I'm gonna make sure that I actually get it this time. That was the one that did it for me.
Nice.
I put like 87 hours the first time I did a playthrough, and then I did a New Game Plus run almost immediately. So that was when I kind of became a believer, despite me absolutely hating the guts of the Elden Beast at the end. But yeah, I really like Elden Ring at launch. So
Ains, I'll go next. So
yeah.
Elden Ring was the first Souls game I ever played.
Wow,
Completely
so many people I hear this from.
Avoided all the others. I heard nothing but traumatizing, experiences with the other Souls game. I'm like, why would I do that to myself? And at the beginning of Elden Ring, I was right there with him. Get to that first little area, and I was like, this game sucks. I hate this game. I don't get it. Why am I doing this to myself? I would stop, and fight every single person, get annihilated. Didn't know about rolling, didn't know about blocking. But then, as we've discussed, and I've pointed out numerous times, and Ains, you know it, and you said this as well, once it clicks, this game clicks. And it clicked for me, and I became so obsessed. I was the first of our friends to get all achievements for it on Xbox. Right after that, I got the platinum.
We're like 4 minutes in, and you already mentioned achievements.
I have to.
What's going on here?
Let me just finish.
Just waiting.
After that, I went and got the platinum on PS4 and PS5. Then I got all achievements on Steam. That's how obsessed I became with Elden Ring. After that, went back and played Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Sekiro, Bloodborne, and then Demon Souls. And now I don't even want to tell you guys how many hours I've spent at Elden Ring. So that's
trust me, you're in good company.
Has done to me. What an incredible experience. So that was my previous experience with Elden Ring before Shadow of the Erdtree.
And by the way, we haven't gotten there yet, but Elu has more hours in Elden Ring than I do, which is saying a lot. So
that's insane.
Yeah, we'll get there. But go ahead, guys. Who wants to jump?
Oh, I'll go. So Elden Ring for me is actually the game that clicked. So I've played all the Souls games, like from Demon Souls. Technically, if we really want to go in the DeLorean, go back, I can say I've been there since Kingsfield.
Yeah,
but,
me too.
Yeah. So but Elden Ring was the first one that just really clicked, where I'm like, I'm actually having fun because of everything from Kingsfield to Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3. Sekiro being the worst for me, but like I literally would go and get destroyed, and everyone's like, oh, this is so amazing, so amazing. I'm like, I don't get it. I'm gonna keep playing. Like I angry played it. Like I'm just like I hate it. But I'm playing it because I don't want all my friends who are like, man, this is great. Look at my build. I'm doing great. All woo woo woo. I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna play it, get through it, and I would always get to the end and just drop it. But Elden Ring, I got it at launch. I played through it, and I got to Stormvale Castle. I got destroyed there, and I dropped it. And then I went back when Shadow of the Erdtree was getting ready to come out. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go through it. I'm gonna beat it. And I did, and I got hooked. And I'm like, all right, I want to start a new save file. So I went and started a new one, and I'm going back and forth between the new save file and the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC save file. And I'm absolutely loving it. And the amount of time I put into it, hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
Hundreds of hours at this point. Yeah.
The crazy thing is like, so the core game I've done 5 times now. And as I'm sure like Elu and others will say, it's like every time you play, you'll find new stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Constantly. It's absolutely unbelievable.
I had no idea you could get to the Roundtable hold until just the other day when you're in the capital city.
Wait, what? You never went to the Roundtable hold?
I never went to that area.
He beamed there.
I know,
Are you
right?
serious?
Yeah. No, he's
Until
talking
now.
about like finding it
I'm
while
blown
you're
away.
at the
I'm blown
capital.
away.
Like,
Yeah, when you're in the
not when you
capital,
teleport,
yeah.
just
Where it's like
enter
all
normally.
ruined and everything. I was like, holy crap!
Oh my God.
To feed off what you're saying, Ains, incredible. Every time, you're right. There's something new. Sorry.
There's something new. Yeah. No, you're good.
I can go next real quick. So
Yeah.
I was like Alex. I had never played any Souls game. All my friends did. And just before Elden Ring came out, I bought Dark Souls 3 because I was like, okay, I should probably like learn this. And I absolutely hated it. I got through the first boss and I like dropped it and never picked it up. And then I picked this up on launch and all of our friends did. And man, for months, literally, it was all we talked about. Like at work, I work at a high school, so like all the people I work with, people talking about Elden Ring. And my first playthrough was a mage build because I was so scared of like how hard it was. I was like, okay, I'm going to create distance from everybody, and it was fine. But I missed out on so much of the game because I was really I didn't really get in the action a little bit, and so I got all the way through the game. I'll be super honest. I did that cheat with Godric at the end where it was still before they patched it where you could run up to him and he wouldn't move. And so I would do that and do the meteor thing and I would melt him. Yeah, for the first like 2 months, if right when it loads, if you run straight up to him, like where you're touching him, he just won't move. He won't attack you. He won't do anything. And so I totally cheesed him. And then I still couldn't beat the Elden Beast. And so I had to literally call Dan in to come and help me beat the Elden Beast and did that. Okay. And then but that was on my Xbox. And so Bacon, who you're going to find out soon is a big PC guy, he helped me build my first PC in January. I had to replay so I could get ready for Erdtree on my PC and did a totally different samurai build. And it was an entirely like life-changing experience. Like I enjoyed the game so much more, exploring things and pairing things and rolling things. And man, it is still, now it's one of my favorite games. Like I couldn't imagine not playing it. And I've obviously loved the DLC, which we'll get into, but that has been my journey.
Yeah.
Bleed was my click moment. As soon as you see like the health just completely like
just jump
in water, like,
splash,
I got it now. So.
Even that sound effect is awesome, like when it hits. But yeah, once you get that kind of timing down in the feel, right, and you really kind of I joke like you start seeing the Matrix, right, where you start seeing the movement and you know the frame count and you know when you can not get hurt and the distance of attacks, and like once all that clicks, it's like it's magical.
Yes, and patience.
You always need patience.
That was the big thing that finally clicked with me, because instead of trying to brute force myself into trying to beat this as fast as possible, I was like, nope. Yeah. Do it one hit at a time if you need to. Like, don't get too don't rush too much. Like, don't think that you're gonna get the hit in.
Don't go for the extra hit.
Yeah.
Don't go for the one extra hit. You always think you have time.
Alex, patience skill just earlier today. I'm like, why did I do that? Like, you know it too. You just always go for that one more hit, and I still struggle with the patience. Yeah. If you really just, I watched a video today of somebody killing the final boss in the DLC. Like level 1, no shadow, trees, fragments, everything. I'm like, the incredible amount of patience just to do all those dodges for one little speck of hit is, it's just something else. So I don't know how those people do it. Those guys are freaks. So Bacon, tell us about your experience.
Yeah, Bacon, let's hear it.
Dan acting like a host. I like it.
Take it over.
He does that when we game too, you know. He did the same thing.
Like most people, it was also my first ever Souls experience. I jumped on the hype like everyone else, played it through on my Series X, and couldn't finish it by myself and had to summon in my boy Dan over there.
It's good.
And he never let me hear the end of it. So I want to say I had 130 hours on that first playthrough on the Xbox. I sold all my consoles, and like Jose with Shadow coming out, I had to start a new character and play it through. The first time on the Xbox, I went as a mage, like keeping distance because I couldn't parry for anything. And then the second time I went through as a samurai, fashion souls, never changed out of anything samurai. I kept it samurai the whole way. And I played through that one all by myself, and that's a little feather in my cap, little thing I can rest my hat on. So all total in Elden Ring, I'm close to 400 hours, and it's probably the most time I've spent in any single player game. Maybe the second most I've put in any game all time. And I'm getting ready to start another playthrough because it's just that freaking.
And you will find, if you take your time and explore, you'll find all kinds of new stuff you didn't even know was there.
The post from Software blues are real. Yeah. I know that.
I'm literally in a funk right now. Like I've got all these games, on all these platforms. I'm just like,
you just want to go back and play.
That's exactly where I'm at.
It's not the same. So. All right, Elu, as the one guy I think I'm going to guess has the most time in Elden Ring here.
Probably. I didn't set out that way. It's not like I started. Actually, it's funny. So going through the history of Souls games, I started with way back, not Kingsfield, but with Demon Souls. And I pretty much played them in order, every single From game, all the Souls games that came out, all the Pretenders, all the actual From games. I played them in order because I loved the idea that Demon Souls felt like the old school games that we grew up with, or at least that I grew up with. I know some of the babies don't understand those. But they took patience and they demanded that you get good at the game. You understood you weren't going to beat the game the first time through, right? You had to learn patterns. You had to understand that you're going to be humbled until you get it right. And I really enjoyed that part of it. I enjoyed the cathartic nature of the gameplay where I'm kind of learning the rhythm and then getting it, and then that feeling you get when you finally overcome a challenge, you're like, it feels a lot like the old school game. So I went through all the games, and then the funny thing though is when Elden Ring was announced, I really didn't care that much. It sounded like they didn't know what they were doing with it. It sounded like a whole mess of all kinds of stuff going on, and then it went into like hold on, Alex, go ahead, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I remember also it was announced just as Game of Thrones season 8 had just aired, and it had George R.R. Martin. So.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it sounded like a disaster. Like I thought this was going to be From's downward spiral. It had to come sometime. I'm like, here we are. Elden Ring is going to be the worst thing we've ever played. I mean, I didn't quite feel it like that. I mean, it wasn't that bad, but it really didn't. I didn't care. So then it got put into limbo for, I don't know, 18 years or something. It felt like. So I'm like, okay, that game's never coming out. I just won't care about it. And then it finally did, and I was like, oh, okay, people are starting to get hyped, and I was like, why? Like, what have they shown that's getting anyone hyped? Then they first showed that trailer, and I was like, okay, that kind of looks all right. That looks like the From Soft magic. I'm like, maybe I should be a little bit excited, but I still wasn't yet. Honestly, it wasn't. Now, I knew I was always going to play this game because it's From. I bought it, and when I first started playing it and feeling that, it felt very much like a Dark Souls game. I mean, they lifted a lot of things from Dark Souls. So I was like, okay, I'm in good company. And from that moment on, I just loved it. I loved that I could explore in it. Like, I'm not unlike any other From game before, I can just go wherever I wanted, and it was just magical. I absolutely loved it. And I didn't think I was going to, but apparently I put more hours than I've been alive into that game. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think last I looked on my friends list, you have...
it's ridiculous.
I think you're 650 hours, something like that.
Yeah. Probably right, yeah.
And I'm at I don't know, I think I'm at about 450-ish because, I reviewed this. I actually got the code for this game. So, and is one of the, I've told this story on Bitcast, but it's one of the most memorable review sessions I've ever had because I reviewed it with Miles, who I think everyone watching this will know, Miles Dampier.
Yeah.
And when I say we were kind of just talking the whole time. And you got to imagine for a second, right? Elden Ring, you're on a clock. We had 6 days to review Elden Ring.
Good
and
Lord.
there's no information about the game out.
Yeah.
Just remember, no one else has played it, right?
Right.
So
what
like,
an experience! What an experience
so-
you had with him and all the people.
literally
reviewing.
back and forth, like we would just message each other. Okay, did you go here? All right, well, then do you go here? Well, how do you get here? And like, it was just like for a week, this is what we were doing. And I put 92 hours in that week for the review, and I barely slept. And by the way, I will call out that before the game even launched, Radon was even harder than pre-patch Radon. Like they patched him twice.
Oh,
So
Well,
I
they
sent
got
a
us back. They got us back.
I remember sending a video to Mo of like, I sent him a video of something. I was like, my hand was shaking and I had died for like the 50th time. And I was like, I don't know how I can beat this guy. I was like, I don't think I can beat him. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So anyway, but so I reviewed it, did those 92 hours. The game came out. I streamed it, did that playthrough. I think I'm on my 5th character now, 4th playthrough. And this playthrough, I started at the beginning of the year, like you guys, to get ready for Shadow. So I had like 110 hours in this playthrough before Shadow. And I think this playthrough has like 180 on it now. Just because I'm trying to do everything in it before going to New Game Plus and get all the armors and everything else. So it's just a wildly addicting game. And I would say too that like you guys probably know this, right? It's like it's when I say wildly addicting, it's like it's almost indescribable. There's like a feeling about just exploring in that game that is not replicated by nearly anything else I've ever played. And I think that just kind of hooks you long term. It's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right. So with that in mind, Shadow comes out a few weeks ago, right? Obviously hyped through the roof. It sold like 5 million copies in a week. You know, everyone really hyped for it. And I don't know how you guys enjoy your games. Everyone does this differently, but I didn't watch the launch trailer. And I went in dark and I refused to look up anything, the whole playthrough.
Me too.
So I kind of took my own journey through the expansion. I missed a main boss early on. I don't even know how. And I kind of went all over the place. But I would say, like, now that you've played Shadow, and I think most of us have, put a lot of time into it, or all of us have put a lot of time into it. How do you feel about Shadow as a standalone? Like both as on its own as an expansion to a game, but as now looking at Elden Ring with Shadow as a complete package, how are you feeling about that now at this point in time?
Game of the decade.
Game of a generation. Game of a lifetime.
Yes.
Yeah.
It helped like wash away my distaste of the Elden Beast as like the final thing that happened to me when I played it, because I legit was like I have shown Ains my picture of me flipping my TV when I beat the Elden Beast. I hated that boss so much that I didn't even give it my Game of the Year back in 2022, though I respected it for the thing about it. For me personally, I was like, I'm not gonna reward something I gave it the finger for. Like that would be like lying to myself. But getting to play Shadow of the Erdtree was like being reminded of the mastery of From Software's like level design and the artistry and display, because somehow they topped what they did in like the main game, and it makes the main game feel like the first draft, and that is insane considering that's like one of the greatest open worlds ever made. And how they were able to achieve that scale and make it feel more like a Dark Souls game that still allow you that level of freedom and a Skyrim-like level of let's just follow this path. Let's go down this cave. Holy crap, there are dragons here. Holy crap, there is the Death Mountain. And at the top of this Death Mountain is the freaking Barlog or Balrog, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And how like what Ains was saying, that he managed to go all the way around that map naturally and missing one of the main bosses that everyone was like having a tough time. I'm looking at you, a stupid twin knight, Lana.
Yeah, I was like, where is this woman? I got 60 hours and I haven't found her.
Wow.
Like,
Oh, man.
and the funny part was, by the time I got back to her, right, I beat her in like 30 seconds, first try. Like, I mean, she was nothing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so it was like it was a showcase that what they did with main Elden Ring wasn't a fluke, and they have now cleaned up like what anyone can expect of DLC, because they gave us a full ass game. So.
Yes.
Yeah, I think people were talking about it being $40, and it's like after you experience it, there's no questions as to why it's $40. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's my thoughts exactly. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. Go ahead, Big.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think I've ever played a DLC that I put 50 hours into, and I still haven't finished everything in that DLC. I know there's stuff I missed. I know there's areas I missed. I know there's caves or tombs or whatever I missed. I just can't for the life of me remember anything that I've sunk that kind of time into, and have not at one point through the base game or that game been fed up with what I was doing. Like trying to grind achievements or trophies like I am on Ghost of Tsushima right now. It's driving me insane to try to get this platinum. I'm like, this is so awful.
Don't tell Ains that.
I'll let you know, Bacon. You don't need the platinum. It doesn't matter.
It's personal. It's a personal thing for me now.
It's a personal.
But honestly,
If I could tell you my remake Rebirth platinum runs.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Like, so 400 hours in, and at no point other than my frustrations of getting murdered by someone 9 times the size of me and is faster than me, at no point of the exploration or doing this or doing that did I ever sit there and go, why am I doing this? Which I have done multiple times in the last 2 days, cleaning up these ghost achievements or trophies. So,
yeah.
I was just I was blown away because like when all the reviewers got a hold of Shadow before it released to the public, everybody said like they gave everyone a level 150 character, which like on my first playthrough of Elden Ring, I think I was like a 112 when I finished the game. So like hearing that and hearing that it was still insanely hard, I was like, oh god. And so when I went back to that playthrough, I purposefully leveled to 200, and even still, that first dude you walk up to with those like rings, as soon as you first arrive in Shadow, just murdered me. And I was like, oh no. You know what I mean? Like that, I think that was truly an achievement, because I think about in any other game, if I had leveled up or over leveled that and then there was a DLC, I still would just destroy everyone in the DLC, right? It wouldn't even be that challenging. And immediately I realized like, okay, you have, just like the first Elden Ring, you got to learn the mechanics, you got to do your homework, you got to be patient, like all of these things. And I think that's so hard to do in a DLC also that was easily could stand up as its own game. Like if they had said this is Elden Ring 2, I would have been like, yeah, that's absolutely reasonable. It's just as much as of a game as the first one. So I think that's an incredible achievement right there, truly.
Yeah, dare I say it's even better than Elden Ring.
Yeah,
I wouldn't go that far. I to me, it matches it, and it complements it like a glove. I think it's one of the greatest DLCs ever made. It's up there for me. So I think about DLCs that blew me away when I played them. Okay, I obviously haven't played every DLC ever made, but I think of things like Borderlands. Tiny Tina blew me away when I played it the first time. I know Ains will hate this, but the Iceborne and Sunbreak for the Monster Hunter world, and then Rise were amazing. They added so much to those games, and there's others. There's other DLCs that are up there, but what I love about this one is it didn't just add. It's not just like here's more. It's they understood what we've already gone through to get to that point, and then they designed the whole world against us at that point. You know, so the dodging that we got comfortable doing, no, that's not happening this time. You know, now you have to learn a new way to do this and all that. So trying to balance that with all the different builds and everything, and then giving us this giant world filled with secrets. They knew exactly how we were going to explore, and they made sure that it was still rewarding for us. It's an incredible achievement that is something that's going to be looked at by other games trying to make DLCs. And honestly, I don't even know if anyone's going to like it'd be really hard to make that your aspiration. Like, we're going to make a DLC like this, because it's just so much went into this, and it really just blows my mind how much it is. Like Jose said, it could be its own game. It really is amazing.
Yeah, we were just talking in the chat about for those who don't know, right? They've come out and said this was in development when Elden Ring launched. Yeah. So this is a 2.5, 3+ year development for the expansion alone, and you can tell, I think, because of how neatly coupled it is. To Elu's point, it complements the core game so well in design, level design, boss design. The new armors and weapons. Like, you can tell that it was made to kind of fit together exactly as Elu said, and more importantly, right? I really enjoyed that it added depth to the story and the lore. If you're really into the lore aspect of Elden Ring, it added so many layers and explained so much that had been speculated on. It just kind of tied it all together. It's absolutely incredible in that regard. Let me pause this for 1 second as we get Eric in here.
Hey, there he is.
Hey.
What's up, Eric? Welcome.
Hey guys, sorry I'm late. Summertime and kids' bedtimes are not a good combination.
We all understand.
My kids are
all know.
Screaming in the background right now. So.
No worries. Someone else was going to talk. Sorry.
I was just going to say quickly, you asked as a whole package. Yeah, Ains, this is one of the best games I've ever played in my life. without a
Yeah.
doubt. I've always said that the Mass Effect collection, the 3 games, is my number 1 game of all time
So good.
because I feel like the story, the combat improved every game, and I felt as much as people disliked at the time the ending of 3, I always felt like the whole game was the ending to the trilogy, and I thought it was phenomenal. And then the expansions on that, I just wrote in the chat, is another awesome part of those games as well. But as far as pure gameplay is considered, or like, I can't think of a game that's better than Elden Ring. Like I like you said earlier, there's nothing that gives me that sense of accomplishment, and it really is kind of like a drug. Like, I was going to talk to you about this, Ains. I wanted to invite you to talk about it. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, this game does something to us. Like,
Hi, my name is Wally, and I've been addicted to Elden Ring.
I'm serious.
That's what this channel was really about. Yeah.
It really is crazy what this game does to you once you just become obsessed with it. So yeah, it's one of the greatest games ever. I will say, as much as I thought the DLC improved on the level design and even the art style, I did have a little bit of a problem with some of the
We'll get there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah. Because we'll get the gripes, right? Nothing's perfect. So
That's true.
Eric, so you just jumped in. So we talked about kind of our experience with Elden Ring as a whole before Shadow. Now we're kind of getting to Shadow itself and how it complements the core game, how you enjoyed it, etc. So if you want to jump in and give us your overview, go for it.
Yeah, I think like if you combine them into like one package, it's like so unfair to like all other games. It's just it's like, because the DLC itself is probably better than and bigger than like most other games, like full games. And then when you combine something like Elden Ring, I know I didn't give my spiel on Elden Ring. I think it's the best game of all time. Short, to keep it short. So to add on top of that, something that's the size and scale and scope of Shadow is just like, it's just cheating. I think if you combine them and you count it as one game, it went from probably the best game ever made to definitely the best game ever made.
That's fair.
That's short and sweet. Yeah. Yeah. Who else needs to jump in with Shadow? I'm losing track of who's spoken. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I was gonna say, as far as like when it comes to a DLC, like I don't think, or it's been very rare for me to have ever played a DLC that feels as complete to the point of like everyone saying, like, if this was Elden Ring 2, I would definitely believe it. Most DLCs that I played just feel like half-baked, quick cash grabs. You know, hey, it's an afterthought, or here's something to lead into what the next game is going to be. And it's like the way FromSoft designed this, as you know, to be able to stand next to the core game, is just absolutely wild. And I feel like it should show the industry, like, hey, here's a standard we all need to try and, you know, work towards making the norm. But that's just how I view it.
Yeah, let me jump right on top of that with, there's no paid anything in this. You get the whole package out of the. I know a lot of people have an issue with that and all that. You get everything right out of the box. I mean, you have to earn it, of course, but you know, there's no microtransactions. You pay for it. You get a product, and it's absolutely amazing.
Just like the first Descendant. No, I'm lying. No, that's true, though. I think there's something to be said for those kind of, to your point, and you mentioned this earlier, Eli, that the game, like for a long time now, has made games how at least it feels they used to be designed, right?
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And that extends to this, where, yeah, they're asking you for $40, but you're getting more than your money's worth. And everything that you can, you know, ever want to get in that experience is there for you to enjoy as you see fit. They don't ask anything else of you. And I think that that's great. You know, there's other companies that do that today too, but in the way the industry's kind of gone, it's refreshing in that sense to get that much value for your money. I will say, like, for me, in terms of expansions, I think there's, you know, you guys said some good ones already. Luke also pointed out in the chat, Undead Nightmare for like Red Dead, fantastic. Dan, you mentioned Lair of the Shadow Broker, right? amazing. Fallout 3. What was the one for Fallout 3? Not Anchorage. I can't remember now, but there's been some amazing expansions through the years, many of them. Say it again.
Point Lookout.
Yeah.
Fallout 4 had Far Harbor, I think.
Far Harbor. Yeah, a lot of the Bethesda games have had great
good expansions. Yeah. So, I think for me personally, and I don't think I'm alone in this because it was the highest rated expansion of all time before Shadow, was Blood and Wine for Witcher 3. And I've always held Witcher 3 up on a pedestal. Like Witcher 3, especially as a complete game with Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine, is I've always thought probably the best game, I've ever experienced. But I think now, like, I've finally come to the conclusion between Red Dead 2, Witcher 3, and Elden Ring were all up here for me. And I think that with Shadow now as a complete experience, I kind of agree with you guys. Like, I don't think any game touches this as a holistic experience. It's just too damn good, too well designed, too deep, too addicting. Like, it's just, there's so much to this game, and it gives you back what you put into it. You know what I mean? Like, if you spend the time getting the doing the NPC quests right thoroughly and getting the items and reading the lore, like it just goes deeper and deeper and deeper, and you can go as deep as you want to go. You can play surface level and just enjoy the challenge and the exploration, or you can really, really kind of get into the world. And their world development is second to none. It's just absolutely remarkable, honestly.
Yeah.
So so let me ask this, and this is gonna be hard, but I want you to pick kind of one thing. What was your favorite thing about Shadow? Be it the environments, the exploration, the bosses, the new loot and kind of builds. Like, what kind of jumped out to you as your favorite aspect?
Curse you, Bale!
Egon.
I can go. Oh, sorry. I would just say, like, for me, and the way that I played through it and the way that the DLC kind of meshed with my particular character, which I'll probably get into later, I think my favorite aspect of it was just not like a specific thing, but just how grand and how large and how big the scale was. Because, like, if we look at, you could look at something like Blood and Wine or whatever the Witcher one was called, and that is a huge DLC. It adds like a continent essentially, and this kind of like makes that look like an
island,
a rec pack in Halo 5. Like, it's like
shots fired.
not in terms of quality, but just like in terms of the scale of this. I hadn't looked at much in terms of previews, but I know, like Miyazaki had said, it's about the size of Limgrave. And like in my head, like I had this idea of what Limgrave was. And even I think that idea that I had of what Limgrave was is smaller than what Limgrave actually is. And then the DLC is like 10 Limgraves.
Yeah, that's just Miyazaki being Miyazaki.
Yeah.
Part of it is like my expectations going in were high for quality, but I had a certain expectation about like how big it would be, how much there would be. And that it just like constantly kept blowing it away. Every time I thought I uncovered the map, there was like another zone. There was like a 5-day period where I discovered an entire new zone accidentally, like every day. So I would say the scale, and it was just so unexpectedly big, and the amount of content and just like area you got to explore was just like I said, kind of originally, it's just another game. It's just a whole other game.
Yeah. Just feeding off of that, Ains, I would say for me, my favorite part was just exploring the area, just everything, just having more Elden Ring to explore and being in that world absolutely was my favorite part. And realizing that, some parts of the map, specifically, the center castle, I can't remember the name of it, how there's like 5 exits out of that place. Is it
Ensis?
Shadowkeep.
Shadowkeep.
Shadowkeep. Thank you, Alex.
That absolutely blew my mind that there were so many paths out of that one place. And like you said, you missed one of the bosses in there, if I'm not mistaken. So just exploring the world, exploring the little caves. I like the addition of the new, I don't know what they call them, the ones with like all the flames and like the lava pit, like those specific, were they like dragon caves? Where you find like the great meteoric or great sword, like those were kind of cool because there wasn't necessarily a boss at the end of it. It was kind of like a little puzzle, and you just got to the end and you just got the reward at the end. I thought those were cool.
Like the weapon foundries, I think.
Yeah.
That's it. Yep.
So just for me, it was the exploration of a totally new world. And
you can tell Alex is the young one. His memory's still on point. The rest of us, I can picture it, but yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to follow on what Dan was saying as well. There was times when I would take a right and I'd be on this path for hours, and I knew there was a left there when I took said right. And I'm like, the whole time I'm like, what was right? I don't know. And I keep working, or what was left. And I keep working right till I get to a point where I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm not supposed to be here yet, because I just got my cheeks clapped. And then I turn around and I'm trying to remember where, whatever side of grace I was at, or wherever I could go to eventually go hit that left. And you don't know what you're going to get when you hit that left. Is it just one room? Is it, a library? I mean, and that was also my most frustrating part, is trying to find some of these locales in this map.
Yes.
I know I see the map shard up there and I need to get to it, but how do I get over there? And
Dude, I spent like 5 hours trying to find the one. I went every direction possible. I'm like, how do I get to this thing?
The mountain trying to find it.
Dude, there's some of them. There's
Yeah.
no way if you found all those Ains without looking something up. That's truly impressive.
I never would have found that top left area.
No, absolutely. It
Wasn't
took
for a guide.
I have almost 70 hours in Shadow. I mean, it took a while.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'll jump on with what Eric said, and the same thing. I was the art direction, and I'll be honest with you, I'm one of the dudes that I don't know the lore to Elden Ring. I've tried a little bit, and I just don't understand.
There's lore, Jose.
That's
lore?
my problem.
Ains said that last week on Bitcast. I was like, what is it? There's a story.
Well, if
here?
someone knows, I believe it. And I bet Elu knows too, but I'm not that guy. So I've not really understood the story, but I still had a great time. But I will tell you, this game did so many things I didn't think could happen again. Like, I remember specifically in Elden Ring, the first one, that warp that takes you to Caelid, and you walk out, and I immediately knew, because I was only like a level 6 at the time, I was like, I shouldn't be here. This is a dangerous place. And I felt like that same thing in so many of these places again. Like, I think about even the first time I got to the Cerulean Coast, like, I just did not expect that visual in this game, and it was absolutely stunning, dude. Like, just
biome diversity.
Yes.
It's even more pronounced. Like, every time you go to a different area, that makes it all feel together, but it's so distinct.
Exactly.
Even more so than just going from Limgrave to Caelid.
Did you say biome diversity?
Yeah.
A hint to infinite. Am I right, Ains?
I like it.
Oh my gosh.
So I just love
We've
that.
had way too many talks about that.
No.
That's not him.
I just love the art, man. It's just like Miyazaki's team, whoever is in charge of that art department, man,
Just
they're
stunning.
like S tier. It's
Yeah,
insane.
the bodies everywhere and just wow. That's
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think-
Jose, I'm gonna cut you off, Ains. Okay, so
No,
I want to
go.
talk about. So you mentioned about going to Caelid. That's one thing I love that Elden Ring does, and really FromSoft games do, is there are so many times you're in a place you're like, I am not supposed to be here,
Yep.
and
Scary.
it's so refreshing. Like, so many games are like
Yes.
an amusement park ride, right? Like, there's no point in leveling because you're just going to go on the safe way all the way through the game,
Yeah.
and then at the end, I mean, the enemies are getting harder, but so you're getting leveled up, and then it doesn't feel like anything's really changing. You're just getting some cool new moves to kill the enemies with. So I love that. In this game, you get real exploration. You get to go somewhere and, oh, that thing is going to destroy me. But I kind of like that I'm here. I want to see what's in that cave over there. So I got to get by that. And you got to figure that out. And, so it puts you in that area where you're vulnerable. You're not supposed to be here, but you got to, figure out a way to get over that so you can get to the cool stuff.
Yeah, it's weirdly empowering, right? It's like you learn, like,
Yes.
I know I shouldn't be here now, but I'm gonna have to be here eventually. So, like, I have to work towards it, which you're right, you don't get that in a ton of games anymore. You just could hack and slash your way through. So it's a very different experience.
yeah, no hand holding at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also them like making a dungeon exploration feel more even more rewarding. Like there's like this entire like bottom place that Ains has kind of mentioned is like a Bloodborne place that you only find if you go through like a dungeon that then leads you to like one of the coolest areas that also has like you have to do stealth, which you usually don't have to do in this game,
Swamp stealth.
And then you go into like a Resident Evil mansion with like a really cool looking
Dude.
boss.
Jose, tell about the mansion when you got there.
Which mansion?
Remember, you're like
At the
what do I
At
do
the end of the
there?
abyss.
Before you-
Dude, I didn't know what to do. I was
Roll
like,
through the
I
wall.
looked through the whole thing and I was like, there's this weird like single room in this place, and I just left, and I didn't even know what to do. I had to work through the wall.
Yeah, me too.
I was joking with these guys prior to going live that Elu and I were in a party chat actually, and I was like really drunk, and it was like 2:00 in the morning, and I had made it to the mansion. I'm like, what is going on? And I didn't want to go to sleep, and I was just sitting there, and then I got to the boss, and he destroyed me, and I was like, yeah, I don't think I can do this tonight. I can barely see straight. But that whole area was just incredible. But I think like building on what Elu said, and Elu and I have talked a lot about this offline, right, is exactly what you said around like it just lets the player learn how they want to learn. Like if you want to stay on the core path and just, you know, keep it as easy as possible, run away from all the bad stuff, and don't explore the new areas, you can do that. But if you want to go to you want to go into Caelid and you want to go down those ruins, or you want to go see what's in that castle, you can do that. And you're probably going to get your ass kicked. But for old people like me and Elu, who love getting our ass kicked for some odd reason, maybe the 80s, you know, generation, tough times. You know, I enjoy that. It's like, because I just look at it as, oh, you're trying to stop me, I'm going to overcome this challenge. And I just love that. And not many games do that. You know, we talk about the games, like, I never really felt challenged as much as I love it in Witcher. I never felt challenged in Skyrim. I never felt challenged in those open games. They're explore. You can save every 5 feet. There's no risk in any of those games, or no challenge. And I think it's just a very different mindset. Some people don't like that, and that's fine. Yeah, but I know for me, I love it to death, and it's very addicting.
I think, to like piggyback off of what you're saying, like, as someone who, you know, I'm born in the 80s and growing up with gaming where it didn't hold your hand back then. It's like, if you wanted to figure out how to play a game, either you just kept trying and failing, or you read the manual, which we don't have manuals anymore these days. But it's like, you know, going into this game where I don't have that safety of saving every 5 minutes. I literally have to learn boss strategies and enemy patterns and everything like that. It literally harkens onto what we grew up playing.
Yes.
And I love it for that. I love that I don't have to sit through a 4 or 5 hour tutorial. Like, I'm sorry, I know a lot of people love Persona, but one of my issues with Persona is how long those freaking intros are. But, you know,
I love it, but they could dial them back quite a bit.
Right? It's just great having a game to just let you immerse yourself in it. And what I love about especially Shadow of the Erdtree, when it comes to like the art direction, I'm a massive fan of Berserk, you know, and the fact that this really pays even more homage to Berserk is just, I love it.
Mikkel, I love what you said there about how the game just lets you play. And that's one thing I really noticed is when I was playing, I just played Final Fantasy VII Remake for the first time. I'm like, will you just let me play the game? Can I just play? I don't want to hear Cloud and Tifa talking about something stupid every 5 minutes. Like, can I just play? Because I think the combat in Remake, they did a great job, you know, combining from the old games to the present day. And I'm like, just let me play. Can I play this game? And I feel like that's a problem that a lot of games,
a lot of modern games. That's what killed me. We talked about this, right? Is Ragnarok drove me nuts, absolutely nuts. Like every 2 steps, it's telling me what to do. I'm like, will you just shut up? You're driving me that was a slog to get through that game, and it shouldn't have been. Brother. Yeah, it's a big cinematic, you know, it's very well produced game, but God, it was frustrating to play. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, I don't know. It's just very different, I think. I was actually talking to my son about this. I know most of us have kids. So my son's 18, about to be 19. And we were just talking the other night because he's playing Elden Ring again now and has gotten into it. He's gotten hooked. Nice. But like, he plays it very differently, right? He's like just trying to beeline it, and he looked up how to farm to gain levels, and you know, all that stuff that the kids do now. And I'm just like, I'm like, you're ruining the experience, man. Like, you're killing me. But you know, it's just very different.
Yeah, but you can play it, and like you said, it's all about the gameplay. And I feel like so few games are all about game. Like, you know, it's like there's gameplay in there, but then it's like we have to have a story. I feel like studios feel like if they don't have like this giant story and all these well-written characters, like they're gonna get shot in the foot for that or something. So then we have to know about them. So then we get like this, you know, 100 hours of exposition thrown at us all the time. And it's like,
I agree. Kojima's overrated. I mean, it's fair.
Yeah.
Sorry, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely now, but there's a time and a place for that, right? Like, I like Kojima's games. You know, they actually put together like.
Kojima wasn't rated back in Metal Gear Solid, okay, on the PS1. He deserved it then, but now
he changed the industry.
Weird.
He's weird.
Back then, we were pining for it. Remember, like back then, we wanted these stories because we wanted to tell our parents, like, look at this art form that it is. It has
Take it seriously, damn it.
But these days, it's like just way too much. It's like they want us to know there's a story and it's going to go on for days. And there's a time for that. Like Persona is a great a great example that those games are designed for the story, and there's gameplay in there as well, and we know what we're going to get out of that. But one thing I find so refreshing about the Elden Ring games and the FromSoft games is that the gameplay is first and foremost, and that's what we're going to get, and we know that. Yeah, it's fantastic.
And I think to that point too, because I was talking about kind of the lore, and it gives you back as much as you want to put in. Like, if you do want that story and you do want to understand the characters and their history in the world, that's there. But in From games, you have to get it. And again, I realize some people don't like that or whatever. You know, it's just a different approach to storytelling. But I appreciate that because of the reason you said, Elo. It's like, if I want to go off for 10 hours and do my own thing, I know I can do that. If I want to dig into the story and spend time, you know, reading through stuff and talking to the NPCs, I can do that too. Rather than the approach of, here's 20 hours of story and you're going to listen to it. You know what I mean? Because then you're taking all the choice away from me. And unless you're delivering a narrative that is hugely engrossing and curated, you're going to lose me. I just get frustrated with you at that point. Personally, again,
You're
obviously.
old, Ains. That's why.
I know.
And part of that's also what helps with the replay. Is what helps with the replayability, because if you, like Dan always complains about in Tsushima, that you can't fast forward the cutscenes, and like imagine if that was the case in a long game like Elden Ring, where you're like on your 4th, 5th playthrough, you'd literally be like, I gotta go do something for 20 minutes because I can't stop this cutscene.
Yeah,
that's when break on that.
It respects your time, which is something a lot of games don't now. And it's like, I'll use the example of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I got a review code for it well after it came out, but like I got a code and I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna play enough because, you know, with kids, family, all the other stuff, like I'm gonna play enough to review it and I'm done. And I just, because it felt like a slog every couple minutes. Okay, we're gonna have this long exposition, all these cutscenes, all this talking. I'm just like, can I just play the freaking game?
Yeah,
I put 132 hours for review for that one.
He did. He played the living hell out of it. Although you kind of enjoy it, though. Not that game specifically, but that type of experience.
I mean, you aren't, isn't Alex going for like the platinum? Like that?
Yeah.
Literally insane. You're insane.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
So here's what I was going to ask you guys, and we've kind of joked because I know I really get into the lore. I watch all the VOD. Everyone knows VOD, right? So I watch his vids, some other vids. I'm part of another community that does Elden or FromSoft stuff, right? And they do all sorts of lore stuff. So I'm very kind of familiar with everything in the game and how it ties together. But as some of you have said, right, you can play through this whole thing, both Elden Ring and Shadow collectively, and not really get much out of it in terms of character development or anything else. So I was going to ask for you guys either way, did you understand or kind of enjoy the connections in Shadow as they related to the main game? Because if you do know, right, and you do know the character, there's some huge revelations. There are some very big ties into main characters and background and history. Like, did any of that hit with you? Did you enjoy that, or did you not care at all?
I'll go first. I have no idea what Ains is talking about right now. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm done. I'll go take a break. You guys take.
That's fine. I mean, I don't think you're alone. I think a lot of people play From games like that. They just play to play them, right? The gameplay.
Did Mog beat the allegations?
Like, did each of you make it to the area where Marika grew up? With the gold and the music, the light music playing in the field and the village. Did you find that hidden area?
I'm guessing.
How are we with spoilers? I missed the intro.
Oh, spoilers is fine.
Yeah,
it's expected. Yeah.
All right.
So there's an area in the game that is through a path that is hidden. You can only get to it from that path, but it's a huge like thing in the game. You get a special item there. It's a very special moment in the game in Shadow that ties to kind of the whole story. But it sounds like a lot of people might not have found it.
I'm just over here like, you know how much of this game I'm trying to remember right now? But yes, I did get that. Yes.
Were there enemies with like red names there that were kind of naked? Is that
nope.
Okay? So probably
no, there's no enemies.
Okay.
Not in that one spot, anyway.
Is it at the very like?
Am I talking to myself right now?
I think so, buddy.
Okay, all right. Wow. Well, you guys have something to go find then and look up because it's cool.
Always.
Well, I might have found it. I don't know. One of
you would know.
Okay.
You would know. Like literally everything else stops and it just plays like the main theme music on a loop. Like
what?
You would know.
Okay, I don't think I
Yeah.
then.
No.
But one of my like critiques of Elden Ring and of all From Software games is like the storytelling. I watch some of Vati's stuff just to kind of understand what the fuck just happened. Sorry if we can swear, I don't know. Just to understand what just happened. But I think of games that I've played that have gotten like massive emotional and like responses from me when crazy things happen. Like I think about like a moment in particular in BioShock, or like the end of something like The Last of Us. And I think about how shitty it would be if in order to understand what's happening, I had to go and watch Vati explain it to me after the fact. So I know some people do like that. And I personally think that's, I don't know if it ruins the game or anything like that, because like I said earlier, I still think it's the best game of all time. But I think it would be better if there was a little bit more in the cutscenes, a little bit more in the dialogue that kind of better directed the story, so you didn't have to read item descriptions all the time, or you didn't have to like find a secret path to a secret room to lead you to like one of the best. And some people like that discovery, but and I don't know exactly what Ains is talking about, but if it's something that is super critical and one of the best moments in the game, I don't know if you said that, but I'm imagining that you said something similar to that.
It's a very cool moment. Yeah.
Then I think that there might be it might be good to have a little nudge in that direction, perhaps. Or
that's
something
true
like that.
of like, think about like, well, and you're saying this about all From games, not just Elden Ring. Like, Nameless King, right? Like, he's an optional boss. He's a complete optional area you could never even find. But he's one of the most memorable bosses. So they've always done that. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Eric said, I also feel like From Software has gotten used to putting a lot of important story in their trailers that doesn't show up in the game. Like they were saying something that there was like a big revelation about Mesmer and the snake in one of the trailers before Shadow of the Erdtree launched, and that thing is not in the game at all. So it's like, I understand you want to have minimalism, but if you're starting to put important stuff like doesn't even show up in the game, I can see why some people would be even more frustrated, on top of the fact that storytelling is already vague enough and very player driven. So
yeah, got you. So Luke asks, go ahead, I'll pose this to the whole group. So go ahead and but he's basically asking what Eric was alluding to. Like, do you consider the lore in the game good, quote, if you can't find it comfortably? Not necessarily the writing, but the storytelling delivery, I guess, is what he's asking.
50-50, I would say.
One kind of correlation that I'll point out, I don't know if anybody here plays Destiny, but that's like my obsession. I played much Destiny, and Destiny 1 has insanely good lore, like Star Wars level sci-fi. It's crazy, but literally none of it happens in the game. You have to watch videos. I have a bookshelf full of grimoire books over there, and like you have to do that. And in Destiny,
that's Bungie.
Yeah, but let me finish. In Destiny 2, especially recently with the most recent expansion, they put the coolest story moments like up right in center in the gameplay experience. There are some things that you have to look and find, but you're sort of nudged in that direction, and it leads to some of the best narrative moments that I've seen in that game for sure, and one of the best kind of cinematic moments I've ever seen in a video game. And the reason why it hit so hard is because I understood the gravity of it. When I fought the final boss in this DLC, I was like, why why is this guy here? What's going on right now? Because I didn't understand why, because I didn't watch Vati yet.
I'm right.
And I thought the fight was amazing. The spectacle was amazing. The combat, the gameplay, all of it amazing. And the journey to get there, amazing. But like, I feel like if maybe if I played it with Vati, it would have been better if he was right beside me. Like,
that's a great
pointing
point.
stuff out.
No, I think Vati helps, right? But if you go back, like everything to understand that final boss is in the game. It's not like it's not in the game.
It's not like he's the writer, but like, I don't know. I mean,
he pieces it all together.
Yeah, and I get it that like you can find it in like descriptions and in text and stuff like that. But I mean, maybe I'm a zoomer or something. I kind of want it in a cutscene or in a dialogue voice to me, or I don't know, dude. I know this is a controversial take, and a lot of From Soft games actually like this, and I do think that it's cool to have different ways of doing things across all the millions of video games out there. That's just how I personally.
So do you? Let me pose this back to you, because you're certainly not alone, right? I think this is a pretty common criticism of the From games, but I think so Wally as well, and I'm sure others. But let me ask you this then: like, I think part of what makes the game addicting, especially for repeat playthroughs, right, is finding new things and piecing things together. If they went this route, right, and say they do longer cutscenes or they do longer narrative moments and they piece it all together for you, do you still have that same kind of mysterious discovery kind of addicting hook as they do now?
So in a perfect utopia of FromSoft games, I would like there to be a slightly tighter narrative. Like that's why I keep saying the word nudge you in the direction of where the story's going, but still have the mystery there. Like I think there's certain things that they could tell you, but still leave certain things under wraps. Like I think there should have been something probably that nudged me in the direction of this secret crazy moment that you're talking about. But I don't necessarily need to know that, like, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but like the stuff revolving around like Moog's body and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like that could have been cool stuff to find out through exploration and stuff like this. But if there's like a really cool like moment that's like a eye-popping like crazy thing that is like really special, I should be kind of nudged in that direction. I don't want a breadcrumb trail to lead me there. I don't want like Final Fantasy level cutscenes where like it takes 30 hours to get through the cutscenes, but just maybe nudge just a little bit over to the side.
That's fair. And let me get to Mikkel.
Oh, so what I was going to say is like I understand what you're saying and I agree, but I think that's also what makes FromSoft games what they are, which separates them from everything else. I mean, like I said, we can go this level of storytelling goes back to Kingsfield. It goes back to, I'm gonna throw one out. A lot of people probably haven't heard in 20 plus years. Evergrace on the PlayStation 2. Like another from like that's a callback, and it had the same style. And I think what they'd love to do, what Miyazaki loves to do, is just basically make his games in a way where it's like you are in the world. It's such a level of immersion that okay, you're learning as if you're in this world. You got to go here. Like everything is not like really just spoon fed to you like so many games nowadays where it's like, oh, your attention span's low. Let me give you this 30-hour cutscene that's just going to tell you everything. So, and it's a difficult balancing act, but I love it for what they're doing.
Yeah. Mikkel, you're spot on. I absolutely love the way you just put that. And so I do understand your point, Eric. I think you are a Zoomer in a way that I'm just kidding. I get wanting to understand where the story is, what's going, not wanting to miss things and all that. But to Mikkel's point, it's so true that we're playing this as somebody who's in this doomed world. This world that is, I mean, we're part of it, and we have to feel that vulnerability. So if I'm running around and I get somewhere and it's like now all of a sudden people come out and start dancing and we have a nice little cutscene there to let me know, it's like that's going to take me way out of it. Even people talking will take me out of it. So I think of a game like Metroid, Metroid Prime, Metroid Other M or whatever. That was terrible because they started like adding way too much exposition. That's not why we play that game. We want to feel like we're the only ones there. We're trying to discover all these things all around the world. And if you kind of add too much to it, you're going to ruin that balance. So it is tough. The balance is tough. I do understand that. I get people not liking that or appreciating that for what it is. I do. I love that melancholy and somber feeling that I think would go away if we had people kind of explaining too much to us, and that discovery wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be earned. We wouldn't earn that discovery. It would be nudged too much. I feel if they mess with that balance.
Well, I think the beauty of gaming is that we can have both. You can have your games that are all narrative heavy, and then we can have games that are like so gameplay driven and player driven for you to find all of that. Even though I also kind of agree with Eric that being nudged a little bit could help. And I kind of think of last year's The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom that kind of built upon like a non-story that Breath of the Wild had, that there was you could like get like whatever was happening with the story kind of like out of order, but the game also kind of nudged you with a specific map that you could find that tell you if you wanted to know like what happened to Princess Zelda, like wherever she went, and kind of like in whatever order, it kind of gave you the tools for you to find that, even though it wasn't an obligation for you to kind of like enjoy that game. So it's kind of like we see an idea of like trying to keep a player-driven experience without bogging you down with a storytelling that may or may not be needed for your enjoyment. So I think there can still be a balance, but even though From Software is about the player experience. So
I think From Software did get some feedback on that, because
I remember playing the base game at launch and playing it now. There are points now where it's like, do you want to speak to what's her name, Melina?
Melina.
And so I remember that wasn't there in the base game at points. Like there are specifically now points where it's like, hey, you can talk to her to get some dialogue. And there's also
They added additional.
they added that, and they add
was
like
one
for
dot.
NPC,
It was just one dot.
yeah, and then it'll like highlight, hey, you should upgrade your flash. Like they're taking some of that feedback, and so
They
I guess
put
like,
NPC markers on the map.
yeah,
so you can remember to go back. And
my
talk
question
to
is, I remember I heard Gene Park, shout out to Gene over at Washington Post. He was talking about how Miyazaki wanted to make like kind of like a response to like a Skyrim. So what if that's the next step that Miyazaki wants to take is including more dialogue? Like what if there was a town where there was no combat and you were speaking to NPCs? Would you be okay with that? Like I think we all agree we don't need the Final Fantasy VII cutscenes. Like no offense to Final Fantasy VII, that's cool. I don't think it's necessarily more cutscenes. It's just a little bit more dialogue maybe to push us. So
I think that's what they've kind of evolved with Roundtable Hold in Souls 3, right? And then you do not Roundtable Hold, Firelink in Souls 3, and then Roundtable Hold in Elden Ring, and you kind of have those NPC stories that come together there, several of them, right? So I think there is a quote from Miyazaki around recently in a recent interview talking about they need to find a way to better guide the player to certain aspects of the game. I forget the exact wording, but like he agrees that like that's something they're still working on and trying to perfect. And I think everything you guys.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say I think everything you guys have said is right. Is like there's a balance there, and I think no matter what you do, there's going to be people far over here and far over here that don't like it, right? Like necessarily like it as much. If they came back and added cutscenes, the Elus and Me's of the world probably wouldn't like it as much, whereas some other people would probably like it more. And there's just, they got to find that balance for them.
No game is going to be for everybody. Go ahead, Alex. Sorry.
No, I think that was the same quote where Miyazaki was said that he still hasn't made his perfect RPG. So
the same interview.
Right.
Yes, same interview.
The same interview. He was like, yeah, like what we've done is like, I still feel like I can do better. I want to do like more of an RPG. So that's probably kind of like where he's going. He perfected gameplay. And
he said Elden Ring is close. And I was like, if Elden Ring's close, just give that man his money. I don't care how much he needs. Just give him everything. Like,
and fix your engine.
For PC players. Yes, please.
And to be clear, with Eric's side, I don't even know if you have to go the cutscene route. Like, I mean, even if it was, I'm not saying we need a bestiary. I think that'd actually be insane for Elden Ring because there's just so many beasts.
I would love that.
But even if there was something that was the bosses, like as soon as you've run into Mesmer, all of a sudden there's a new entry that you can go back read 2 paragraphs that are like his background and who like is he a lieutenant for Mikola, or you know what I'm saying? Like something that if you wanted to know, it's all listed there for you to find. And if you don't care because you just want to play the game, it's not preventing you from moving forward. It's not getting in your way playing. Because again, I feel a little bit bad for the writers and the people that made these bosses because they probably put so much time into like the backstory and like why does Margit have like 4 arms and you know what I'm saying, like, and we just take it as like I hate this mother because it took me 16 goddamn hours to beat him the first time. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel bad that someone put a lot of time into that and we're just taking it as I just got to beat this guy. So I just like that opportunity because I don't mind reading. Like I like to read, right? So give me a little bit to read on the background. Bacon says no, I know Bacon.
Yeah, but not too much.
So I'm just saying something in the middle there could be cool too. And even if it was, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to a full bestiary. I would love to read about some of the weird creatures that are there. I just don't know if that's. I think I'm in the minority on that part, to be honest.
No, I think you can. I think that's a good idea because they basically do that through the item descriptions of the armors for those items, right, or the weapons, and then when you meet the major bosses, you get the remembrances, right, and you can get the lore for those. But it's in pieces again, right? So to your point, if they created like a book where it's like here's Mesmer and it pieces all that together in a neat fashion for you to just read through and sort through, I think that could be very cool.
Short little quest log, like
stop it.
What?
I will not entertain quest log talk here.
Just a little thing. Like, it doesn't have to be crazy here. Just
the quest log is called the trophy list.
Oh man, that's even worse. Alex is getting muted. Alex is getting muted. It's almost as bad as people saying they won 100% at Elden Ring because they got the platinum. It's like, shut up. No, you didn't. Go away.
So for me, it comes down to like I'm okay with the story being super convoluted, and I probably don't know a third of it. But I'm okay with it because the gameplay was so damn good that I don't care about the story in the least. I see multiple different characters, multiple different play styles. I got to change this. I got to do this. I'm going to try to put this talisman on to try to do this effect, to try to counteract this one. And then these gloves, like the gameplay, I feel games try to be great at both gameplay and story, and they all miss the mark. Not since maybe Mass Effect 2 or 3, where they combined a great gameplay with a great story. I just can't think of a lot of games that do that. So I am fully okay. And I admit to anyone in this chat, the 117 that are on Twitter right now, I don't understand anything about this game, and I am okay with it.
Me too, Bacon. I don't know what's going on.
Right.
But that's the beauty of it. It's like you have those of us who care about it and those of us who don't. But like that's a great game, and that's so rare in today's like era of gaming.
Like I hate when a game won't let you go through an open door because you haven't gone to that chest to pull the one shiny thing out of that chest that you need to progress the quest. At no point in Elden Ring did I have to go to that chest and pull the shiny thing out of it to go through that open door. Right? I mean, the imaginary walls that pop up and won't let you go till you go find that one piece of paper or something like that. So I don't understand the story.
But Bacon, here's just a tiny counterpoint. So I looked it up while you guys were talking. The thing that Silken was talking about in the chat, and Ains, where you said it was.
What was the idea the significance of it?
We went there. It was the place with the 5 Shadow fragments that are all together in a cluster, and you're like, "Oh, this is amazing." I think about if I had understood the lore, I probably would have been more like, "This is awesome," but I was just more like, "Sweet, 5 Shadow fragments." I'd go to the next place. Like
I'm with Eric. Give us a little bit of guidance. Come on, Miyazaki. I'm right there with you, Eric.
I think you could probably do a little more. To your guys' point, I think you can do a little more, but you have to be really careful because you've obviously struck something here that has been built upon, as Mega was saying, for generations, right? This is something they've slowly evolved over time in many games, and they've gotten into a place with Elden Ring where you're now, it's kind of funny that From games are still thought about of niche. This is not niche. This is one of the best selling games of all time already, right? And it'll continue to sell more now with Shadow out, right? Just like Witcher and other games like it, that just sell for years and years and years ongoing. So I think you got to be really careful with that balance of making huge kind of adjustments, right? Maybe some small things here and there, but there's definitely something that strikes a chord. And I think you said somber earlier, Elu, and I think that's a good way. The world feels almost bleak at times, and you feel part of that world. And I think that sense of discovery, right, and exploration that we all love so much, that can very easily be destroyed if you mess with that formula too much. It just won't feel the same. It's not that I'm disagreeing. You just have to be really careful with how that's implemented.
Sure. What's funny is that just last year, Armored Core 6 had a little bit more story, like for a from
different kind of game, Alex. That is not
get out of here with that story. And that game is hard as fuck, also.
Yeah, I didn't play that game that long. It didn't grab me really.
And I just got to say, guys, this has been an honor to be here with all of you. Unfortunately, I have to leave a little bit early. I've got an old guy basketball league, so this has been an awesome discussion. I will be listening on my way to the gym. This is what's going to pump me up for this game coming up here. I'll just say very quickly, Ains, one thing I will say, one negative. I know you're going to get to it eventually.
Yeah.
Almost too much level design, and I got lost so many times. That would be
verticality
my
and stuff.
The verticality, incredible, but at the same time, where the hell am I? Where am I going right now? I got to look this up because I have no idea where I am.
Yeah. And unlike the main game, we didn't have different maps for top and bottom. It was just like the main map.
But to be fair, I really liked the level design overall, but more frustrating versus the base game. Like a base game, I found my way to the end. This game, I was like, I don't know where I gotta go.
Dan, tell people before you head out, man. Good luck tonight. Have fun. Thanks for joining. And tell people where they can find you, man. Before
you guys can find me at Daddy G Wally across all social media, all video game places, PlayStation, Xbox, Steam, everywhere. Enjoy, you guys, and I'm seriously gonna be listening on my way to the game. So thank you so much, guys. I'll see you all later. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Later, buddy.
All right, guys.
All right, man. Throw it down.
See you,
I will. Old guy basketball dunks.
He can dunk, by the way.
He can. Yeah, he's an athletic dude, man. Yeah, so I think it's probably a good segue. So we can talk about that. I think if we talk about anything kind of gripes we had with Shadow or things that can be improved upon, besides what we were just talking about overall, but with Shadow specifically, that is the interesting thing I found myself battling in my own head about. So as we were joking earlier, like the map markers, you know where to get them. It's like, why can't I get to that map marker? How do I get there? Right. And some points on this map, from like areas down here in the southeast to this map marker in the northwest, like you actually get to it by like starting way down here, you know what I mean? And there's a path you have to go through.
Yeah.
And there's several big main areas in this expansion that you can only get to by like very narrow
one
pass, like like off the beaten path type thing that just opens up. And I think I was reading something, I don't know if it's the interview, but he was talking about the vistas that From's known for, right? Like you go out into an area and it's just mind-bogglingly beautiful. And I think they did that even better with Shadow, like Alex was saying earlier, just the art design, the biome diversity, like just the different areas in the expansion are absolutely mind-blowing. Like every time I got to a new area, I'm like, how does it keep getting better? Like every area is more beautiful than the next. But finding your way to some of those was a challenge at times. And I would say that the map, as much as I actually love the map in Elden Ring as a whole from a design perspective, like you can kind of look at it closely and say, oh, there looks like there's a cave there and a road there and stuff. But for whatever reason in Shadow, like some of the areas that you would think link together don't, on the map. And I think that that's probably, for me, because I hardly have any gripes with Shadow, I think that's probably the main gripe I had, is just finding my way through some of the world and rehashing, like going back to a point and being like, am I missing something, and circling back over and over again. But
I have another gripe. The bosses, most of them pretty amazing, pretty memorable. Too much movement at times that goes all the way up that I don't think the camera was designed for, that there will be times where it will actually turn you around. And maybe even the scale of some of those bosses will sometimes like obfuscate your own camera at times, where you feel like you're just wailing at like a feet or something, or just hoping that all the AoEs and everything that turns around you doesn't hit you. That I feel like it skirts the line of being almost a little too unfair for how the game is designed. I can see that being like a big gripe, especially with bosses like Bale or the last one, Radon, that he moves away so quick and attacks you a little way too many times. But yeah, that would be like my other gripe. So
I don't know about me personally. I don't know if I felt the same, but to your point, I think there are games, or I know there are games, right, where like when an enemy does kind of either go off screen or kind of scale back, right, the camera will kind of move with it, a little bit to kind of give you a larger POV. Yeah, pan out a little bit. I'm sure there's probably something like that they could work on a little bit. But yeah, some of the bosses are, the bosses in Shadow are nuts, some of them.
Yeah, that happened a couple times on Radon for me, when he would jump up right near the end and my lock would be lost and I'm spinning around circles for that big last
exactly
thing. I couldn't keep him in front of me with my shield because he was completely off the screen, and I died 20, 30 times because of that.
Yeah, Alex, it have to be a lot with dragons too, because like when you're up close with a dragon and their wings and their face, like I just wouldn't know. I'd be swinging and not hitting, and I didn't know where I was. But
especially with Bale.
Do you think like a solution to that could be FromSoft kind of dialing back the FOV a bit?
It would be, but I don't think they can, because the further back you pull the FOV, the worse the performance is going to be. Right. And the performance is already
it becomes harder to see where you're hitting too, right? Especially in a melee build like that. So it's a balance of like how do you keep that?
Yeah, and also weirdly, like since Eric mentioned the performance, like I felt for the most part like this game became slightly more stable than what I remember it at launch, but it has more extreme like frame rate like spikes, and like for example when you're fighting the two guys that are dressed like a lion that does like the storms like at the beginning when he starts doing like all the particle effects. That's when I felt like my frame was like tanking like briefly and the game trying to catch up, even though it was like mostly more stable compared to how it was like back in 2022. And it's definitely pushing their tech in what they do here.
Yeah, I agree with him completely. My biggest complaint of the game is going to be on the technical side and from not ever updating their engine. Like the fact that it's 2024 and I'm playing on a super ultra wide and I can't get those super ultra wide feels from it. No,
he's also on a 4090, so he has the tech to push it.
And no upscaling DLSS, XES, nothing like that. There's just no help. It feels just like we pluck this from console, put it on your PC, and it works, and you don't get any frills, any extras with it. So I'd love their next, because I can imagine those vistas on a 49-inch super ultra wide. The amount I could take in would be insane. But again, the gameplay was so good that I'm playing in letterboxes on the side, and I'm still fully okay with it. But I would just love to see him finally.
I agree.
And they have the money now. There's an excuse.
I think so. If you, I have normal ultra wide, so not super ultra wide. I don't know if it supports it, but I have played with a mod to make the ultra wide work, because ultra wide 3440 actually works natively in the game. Right. They just disable it because of PvP.
Yeah, there's times when I launch the game and it launches in super ultra wide and everything is there, and then 20 seconds later it just blocks off.
Yeah, it cuts it off. So if you play, so you have to mod it. You have to use. I use a thing called flawless widescreen. It's a mod, and then you have to play offline, because Elden Ring will literally stop you. That FromSoft will ban you from going online. So you have to do that, and you can get it to work. And it is, to your point, the vistas. Like, I have screenshots from ultra wide and of like Liurnia and those vistas, absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, it's definitely not optimized for a modern PC like a lot of games are nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to Alex's point, they should be big enough at this point to have a team dedicated to that.
Yeah.
So it is. It is. So I was surprised, like, when I went back, because I played on PC twice and I played on Xbox, and when I sat down to say, okay, where do I want to play this definitive playthrough, I started it on Xbox at the beginning of the year, and I am surprised, like, even in performance mode now, like, it's really pretty on Xbox. They definitely touched it up from when it launched. Like, I kept taking screenshots and I was just shocked at how it looked on console. At this point in time, a lot of those vistas, and especially in HDR and on the OLED and all that.
And you have like a 75-inch, right? Like
80-inch OLED.
Yeah.
It's stunning, dude. It really is. So, any other complaints? Any other things like that jumped out to you as kind of frustrating about the expansion?
I want to say something. I want to say something quickly counter to what Ains was saying and Daniel was saying. I think the level design was fantastic. That's one of my favorite things about the game. I get that
he asked for complaints.
I know, but he said that. I want to quickly say the counter to this. But if that was the base game, I'd have more of an issue with that. This is the DLC, and I think that part of the fun was they understand how we went about the game to begin with. So they made sure there were all kinds of little paths and things that take us away from the main path. Like the main path in the game, you never have a problem finding, right? If I had an issue knowing where I needed to go to beat the actual main path, that would be a bit of an issue, maybe. But I think of like all these other side things, like they're meant to be discoveries, things that you have to go off the beaten path and actually find a beaten path to discover them. I actually really enjoy that. So I just want to throw that quick counter out there. Okay.
That's fine. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think what makes it's kind of like what you're saying. Sorry, Alex. I was just going to say, because when you do find it, to your point, Elu, it is more special then, right? You're like, holy shit, I found something amazing, right? And I think
beaming on the map, right?
Exactly. So that's where that balance comes in of how do you guide the player but not ruin the sense of discovery. And it's tough.
I wish the giant guys with the furnace was cooler to fight than what it ends up being. So especially when you're like just like slowly just wailing at the foot, hoping that it staggers for them to drop. And obviously there's a few ones that you can do that, and you have to kind of bring the furnace to hit in the face. So those were the cooler ones because you have to like think more, but at least like, the majority of them is like a constant, okay, I'm hitting, have to time the jump, he's gonna do it 3 times, do it again. And obviously you could get screwed if you get a little too hasty on that, but it was like it feels like these battles could be even cooler considering like the mat these are just like rank and files, and they only give you 9,000 runes. I'm like, screw you guys.
They are spectacles on the map though. They're very cool to see walking around, which is neat. What did you guys think? I really enjoyed the fact that one of the things that I think is crushing my time even more now is the fact that they added 8 new weapon types, bunch of new armors and spells and incantations, right? All these things, which makes me, and more remembrances. So you have special boss weapons, right? And spells that you can get. And there's a lot of cool ones. I have several, right, that I've already upgraded and play around with. the one I'm using right now is Lita's weapon, which is a a light greatsword. I love the light greatsword. But like my problem now is like all that stuff is so cool. It makes me want to go back through the main game again with all these new things. And I think that's one thing they did really well is they added all this additional content. They balanced, in my opinion, a ton of additional content that holistically goes across the whole game while simultaneously balancing the challenge of Shadow to be separate from the main game. And I think that was hard to do. I saw some people kind of who had some gripes with the kind of Shadow Tree or whatever, however it's properly pronounced, fragments, right? And I'm like, yeah, but if you just allow people to play the expansion and continue to level, especially with the runes you got in that expansion, right? And go back to the main game, everything in the main game is going to be a joke, right? So like their way of balancing that was allowing you to have power dedicated to the expansion, which, agree with it if you or disagree, it doesn't matter. But I think it works well in function.
I think technically it does work well. I am one of the people that's kind of iffy on the Shadow Tree fragments. I mean, there might be a lore reason. I don't know why they didn't do it this way, but I think the solution probably would have been to have the DLC or the expansion be like a post-game thing. I think they're kind of stuck with how they have it happen in the middle of the game where they have to try to figure out a way to balance this. For an RPG and as a fan of RPGs, I don't think it's very rewarding to just get a item that buffs every single stat you have without having to make any choice of how you're upgrading or anything like that. You still get your normal stat upgrades, but I just found it's crazy to say the word that I'm going to say, but it does feel a little bit lazy to have something that just buffs everything. That's kind of my complaint. And interestingly, I don't think any of us have this perspective on the game because of how we've played it. But if you imagine someone going out and buying the bundle and having never played it and then trying to jump into this DLC once they get to Moog, like for me, I got to Moog like pretty early on, like right before, probably like middle of the game-ish or maybe like around 2/3 through. And like there's some stuff in the expansion that would have destroyed me at that point. That are way harder than most of the stuff that is in the base game after that. So it's kind of like a weird dichotomy there of how it would work if you literally started at level 1, never played anything, have no knowledge, and just went straight through and played the DLC once you got to Moog and then finished the game. Like that is kind of weird. So maybe you'll tell me why they did it this way from the lore or something like that. But I don't know. Maybe it could have been a post-game thing. Everybody that I would imagine most people that bought the DLC probably beat the game several times. So I don't know exactly why they decided to do it that way.
Yeah. I feel that they absolutely did this because they knew a lot of people were over leveling, especially with the amount of freedom that they give you like in the main game. And I know Dan was mentioning like Gene Park earlier, and he went into the DLC with a level 713 character. So it was like as high as you can be. And I feel like this allowed them to give you a motivation to not feel like you're just like ready to just steamroll everything, and also an incentivation for you to explore. Because because then like what would be like the race either that you're probably wanting to see everything that's cool or like finding the weapons and all that helps nudge everything into, hey, we made a big world that we want to make you feel like you can find these pieces because this is how you're going to be able to survive now despite whatever you did in like the main game. And I felt it made it more organic in a way, though. I kind of agree. I kind of understand where you're coming from with the idea of like something that just wholesale like buffs everything instead of like giving you something like, okay, I want this to maybe boost my stamina or boost my vigor again or something like that. Maybe they knew that everyone was already kind of like maxed out from like the soft caps, so it was like, yeah, let's just like remove like barriers by getting the Shadow Tree fragments and also the Spirit Ashes. So.
Yeah,
but to some degree though, doing it the way they did allowed people to continue to play as they wanted. Because, like, don't get me wrong, I liked a lot of the new weapons. I liked the Beast Claws were fun for a little bit. I liked the Lizard Greatsword for a little bit. I liked a couple. I like the Dragon Katana, of course, was super cool thing. But like at the end of the day, most of the game, I still went back and played with my favorite weapons, which were the Uji Katana and the Nakakiwa from the first game. And if the Scatty fragments hadn't been there, I couldn't have done that because they basically would have forced you into using some of the new weapon types to complete the new things. And so in a weird way, it gives freedom to people to say, like, if you just loved your build from Elden Ring and you're not really interested in finding the armors and the weapons and you just want to play the bosses, you can still do that. You know what I'm saying? Because that'd be the other concern. if you forced you into only using new stuff for Shadow, that could take away from some people's experiences. Again, not necessarily everyone on this panel, all right, the super heavy hitters of gamers, but it did create some of that freedom as well.
And vice versa too. Like you can find all the new equipment and use it in the main game because it's still balanced for that, right?
Yeah. I did most of the DLC with my double Bloodhound fangs, and I didn't carry
Double Bloodhound fangs. One thing I discovered late on the loot stuff is so there's some NPC quests. I don't know if you guys found them all. There's 4 eyeball things you can find that you can give to a couple NPCs at a certain point, and you can choose to give them light or dark. And what I later read is depending on if you give them light or dark for these 2 situations, they will either give you a weapon or a spell, and you can only do one on your one playthrough. So like I luckily gave the one person the dark, and what I got was this badass black mithril katana. And I was like, oh, I'm glad I didn't get the spell because I'm not a spellcaster. So, and I love katana, so I was like, that's cool as hell. But there's just some really cool loot in that expansion.
And there's something for every play style. Like there's not just new weapons. Like I use a shield, a big giant shield, and a spear, which I think is probably not common. But there is a really cool shield and a really cool spear. Like and there's something for any play style, which there's tons of different play styles. So not a small effort.
Amazing. The one that you get with him that does the thing that you stab and then brings everything up. Oh man,
I need to get it from the Remembrance. You mean?
Yeah, it's from the Remembrance. Amazing spear.
By the way, Travis reminded me on Bigcast. I don't know why I forgot, but he reminded me that I can put myself out there to be summoned to help people. So like one night I just kept putting myself in front of Mesmer right after I beat him and everything and gone through, and I was just helping people beat him. It's fun as hell. You're just in there with like 2 other guys, just helping them kill Mesmer and them getting all excited, that they conquered him. I love that.
It's awesome.
The snake attacks in his second phase.
Yeah, I got his timing down pretty quickly. He didn't give me too much trouble, really. It was just my build, probably, because I had a long dodge, and once you get that timing down, you can dodge him. But
Mesmer was the boss that I had to get into like a Discord call to bitch about because I had to play him for like a while. And literally after I ranted about my next attempt, I beat him. So lesson, bitching always helps.
Well, the game is too difficult, right? Isn't that confirmed? The game is too difficult.
Yep.
I was gonna say, like, the biggest complaint I have with it is the fact that it's not hard enough because we don't have more people complaining about how hard it is. Like, we need an easy button. People want games to play themselves. They just want to watch it. You know what that's called? Go watch a movie.
Yes. Yes. Mikhail knows things.
It is okay. Not every game has to be for everyone. It's perfectly okay.
Yep.
I was going to say the other thing that I really like too is that there's like 4 different endings to Elden Ring, right? And they have drastically different, again, we're back to lore, but they have drastically different kind of ideas of the story, right? And I like that in the expansion alone, they kind of touch on all of those. There's things that tie to each of those storylines if you really kind of dig in deep. So there's like, there's the finger kind of storyline, and there's a couple areas on the map related to the fingers and a whole extra boss, for the fingers. And then there's the abyss we were talking about, which just plays the frenzied flame, right? And someone to that. And then there's stuff that ties back to Ronnie and kind of the whole the story around what do you call it, the night of the Black Knives, which is the whole Godwin thing. That's the main story. So I know we joked about not really getting all the story for everyone here, but it's kind of cool that they made an expansion that has all these elements that tie to several of the things in the main game, like seamlessly, if you're into that sort of thing and finding it all.
Midra, that I had the Abyss at the Abyss, like if you did the Lord of Chaos ending and finding basically the equivalent of like a nuclear bomb that you find there, and understanding kind of like the like what it means to be like a Lord of Chaos or having like the frenzy flame with you, that was like what made that fight even cooler. Like finding if you pursue the Lord of Chaos ending. So
it's cool stuff. What else, guys? I mean, at this point in time, like if you think about this game as a whole, or just from games in general, from a design perspective, we've touched on kind of like Eric was talking about with like kind of, nudging along the NPC or the storylines. We've talked about certain level design and stuff, but is there anything that like personally for your play style or preference you'd like to see done differently or added or what have you for these games, like their next major game?
More cutscenes, really. Yeah. No.
I don't.
I want another Sekiro. I'll just show that.
Yes.
I would like Sekiro,
Well, yeah.
Sekiro
Yeah.
too, because I think the combat in Sekiro is amazing, and it
is.
is only amazing because they really dialed into a specific way to play. So it kind of ruins the flexibility and RPGness of Souls. I don't want Sekiro to replace these games. But I just want some way for them to make another Elden Ring or something like that, and also make Sekiro, just like clone Miyazaki or something.
I would love the parrying from Sekiro to like be in one of these big RPGs, or for that to be kind of like an attempted playstyle, because I've never been good at the parrying of a normal Souls game, because
Me neither. I don't parry at all.
yeah, it's like I love that you can do the whole hold the shield and then press the right trigger to do like kind of like a counter repose as
Guard
as
counter.
or whatever you want to call it. So, but I would love like a parrying style of Sekiro and like a fantasy RPG. So
I went back and read. So I reviewed Sekiro, and I went back and read my review. Mo is playing through it right now for the first time, and I went back and read my review. I was harsh on that game.
Yes, you were. I remember.
Yeah, I gave it an 8. But I did call out exactly what Eric said, in that, like, because it forces you into a play style, it doesn't give you any flexibility. You have to basically play the game the way it wants you to play, and that is brilliant in the way it's designed. But you know, coming from Souls, where you can kind of play in a bunch of different ways, it's just a different experience. I agree wholeheartedly. We need more Sekiro, and we need more Elden Ring style.
It's very interesting to hear people talk. It's been mentioned how Elden Ring is many people's first venture into these kinds of games.
Yeah.
So then, of course, they want to go into Dark Souls and all the other ones, and then there's Sekiro. And I find it interesting to hear the people's reactions when they get into Sekiro, which is a completely different kind of game. You know, you have to play it, and it's a very specific way. It's not an RPG at all. You're not doing builds and all that. And I think that one, I think some people are either pleasantly surprised at the kind of rhythm game that it is, or they're like, what is this? Why is people saying this is good? This is, so it's fun seeing.
And it's hard. That's a hard game.
So, who said that Elden Ring was their first on this panel? I'd like to actually hear, have you played Elden Ring and then went over and played Sekiro? And then what were your thoughts on that coming from Elden Ring?
I quickly gave up on Sekiro, I think on the second boss.
Sure.
I just could not do it. I'm a 46-year-old diabetic with bad eyes. And I'm not the Jason from the 80s when I was like a boss level gamer. Yeah. And I almost rebought it again on Steam, and Dan keeps telling me, no, you're going to hate it again. You will hate it again. And I'm okay hating it again, because I just cannot play Sekiro, and I'm okay with it.
It's a hard game, man. In my opinion, it's the hardest one of the kind of Souls.
I think so
Bloodborne.
too. I think Ichiro is the hardest boss in all the Souls games, even over Adon and all that. I think so. But yeah, very interesting and very fair, Bacon. I do understand that.
Sekiro is From Software's only get good video game, like out of all of them, because at least all of them, at least if you investigate and kind of like find a build, like you can like make the game as easy or hard as you want. There's like no ways to like cheese anything in Sekiro other than the fire demon.
Nope.
That they still haven't patched. That you can drop that demon from like from a ledge.
But when you master it though, and you start parrying every attack, and you're doing you have never felt like more of a
you feel like Neo.
Any FromSoft game. It is the best feeling in the world to parry. It's just like it's insane. When it clicks, you will literally feel like it's literally Neo. That's the perfect comparison. When he realizes he's the one, that's when I realized Sekiro's concept.
Similar. So, Jose, what did you think about it?
So here's the thing. I love this game, and I've thought about going back and now playing some of the other ones again. Because I really, honestly, my first playthrough on Xbox compared to my PC playthrough, I really changed a lot about the way I played it. And a lot of it's what we described, like I'm much more patient, and I understand the build piece, and like I understand the importance of like truly reading about stats and that kind of thing. But the one thing I will add, and it kind of goes to Ains' question as well, of like, what do I want in the future? I want this community to continue, because I'm going to be very honest with you. Like, I watch a lot of guides in my playthrough of both Elden Ring and Shadow of the Erdtree. And that's not to say I didn't explore, but I definitely played this style of like, I'm going to kind of play for like 3 to 4 hours, and then I basically would hit a wall, and so I'm going to go watch a guide. And I have no shame about that, because I just, like other parts of my life, I was like, I got to make sure I finish this before I go back to school. And so, but I still loved the game. And I think one of the most beautiful things about this game that's different is the community it creates through just communication. And I don't mean like I love Warzone 2 and I love Halo and I love that feeling of being on a squad and fighting a team, and like that's a cool way to be with my friends in gaming. But Elden Ring is just different because there's so many people. Like the fact that there are communities entirely based around builds, entirely based around the lore, entirely based around maps, like just the direction you should go in the game. Like I think that is such an incredible thing that doesn't exist with most games today, right? Like, yeah, you can find guides, you can always buy the guide, but that's different than like, you know, I'm not to call out Bacon, but like Bacon had me and Dan come help him with Radahn's final boss. But it was one of the funnest experiences I've had in a game in such a long time, because like we all dressed in the same armor and we finally helped him beat it. And like that is missing from what like couch co-op days of yore, right? Like I remember playing like Turtles in Time on my SNES. I haven't felt like that in a long time. And so I hope that continues. I imagine it will, of course. But I've never played Sekiro, to your question. I've thought about it, and Dan says it's insane. Bacon says he can't play it. Our other buddy, Chance, that was in the chat, he also has played it, and he's beaten it too. And so I'm kind of in this middle area where I feel like I should at least try it.
I believe in you, man.
But it scares me.
I would absolutely try it, Jose. It's a great game. It is different. It is hard. But it's still a great game. Yeah.
It took me 5 years to be the Lady Butterfly. Every year I would reinstall
That's the one I quit on.
All right, that's my metric now. Alex, 5 years.
And
what if I told you that Butterfly is easy compared to some of the other bosses?
But then I tried Shinichiro, which I keep hearing is kind of like the big stone wall that will tell you.
That's what Mo just did. Mo just beat him real easily, which is weird. He was tough for me.
Yeah, Ichiro's not bad. Ishin's tough.
Yeah, Ishin's
I'm with Alex on this. I think that in future From games, I would love to see like whatever Miyazaki thinks is the perfect game. Like throw in some of those parries from Sekiro as a play style. I would love that. Because it's so fun to kind of break dance with these bosses. So that would be cool.
You can get a cardboard item, throw it down. You know.
There you go.
So I've got a couple things I want to get you guys, because I think way too much about From games. We know this. And there's a couple things. I am a hardcore loot game guy, right? Diablo, every loot game I love. So there's aspects of From games that I've always thought would be cool if you could activate them optionally, not for the core experience. But one, I think it would be really cool after like New Game Plus or whatever, if you could turn on completely randomized loot. And by that, assign rarities to the armors and weapons and everything in the game, right? And when you kill an enemy, he may drop his armor set. He may drop Mesmer's spear if you're super lucky. You know what I mean? That's like a super rare chance, but more like just completely random. Every time you open a chest, it's different. It's not what was there when you first played the game the first time, when it was designed its way. And it could completely break the game. You could get amazing items right at the start, or you could get shit and, you know, make it hard. It would just be fun from a curiosity and just explorative, you know, perspective. The other thing I really think that they should add in these games in the future is a boss rush mode. I think like allow you to replay the bosses, not for story, not for items, but just go back, just play bosses again, test out different builds, you know, see how, if you want to challenge, if you want to see the cutscene for that boss again, you know what I mean? Just be able to replay them, I think would be very, very cool as well.
Stellar Blade just added a boss rush and it's amazing. And like the boss fights in that game are like really cool, and they're very like From Software-ish in some ways, and it's so cool like being able to get those back to back, and I would love that from like From Software, like doing Mesmer, Gaius, and Radahn back to back if possible. Man, that would be
I'd also like, I think the last of the three things I was thinking of is, and Witcher added this like 2 years after it was out, is add the ability to scale all the enemies in the game to your level, no matter what level you are. So that makes it much harder, of course. But again, you could go back to Limgrave, right? And when you fight a normal enemy, like he could kick your ass. I think that would just be fun, just because I'm a masochist, apparently. But, you know, as an option, again, options, I think would be fun.
Options are good. I love roguelikes. Roguelikes are, if you could have a mode like that, that would be so addicting. I love that idea.
That would be fun. Like what Prey did, Mooncrash. Like you had like an extra mode like that, and like Elden. Oh my god, man! Now I'm getting excited for no reason because it's not coming. So
maybe Miyazaki will be watching this and he's taking notes.
Well, you know, I did meet him.
I know.
buddy.
Celebrity now.
Hey man, I went to LA and found God. You know what I mean? It was amazing.
And he uses mimic tier. And he uses summons and mimic tier. So don't be afraid to use all the tools he's going to use.
I think honestly, jokes aside, I think that's one of the great things is he is seemingly anyway, right? Just what you get from interviews and everything. He is seemingly extremely humble and extremely team focused. And I think someone in the chat asked earlier, like, how has From done this? You know what I mean? If you look at the resume, we talk about this in SG all the time. If you look at the resume since the last decade, you can say, right? They've basically had several years of Game of the Year contenders or winners. You know what I mean? Just repeatedly. And their quality is just incredible, and the cadence at which they deliver that. Now, there's some reasons for that, overlap of carrying forward the way styles are in the game. Like you said, like Elden Ring's basically a Souls 4 type thing. But still, just their ability to deliver such high quality every time. So it's just really, really impressive. And I think that, as long as he continues to be in charge and he has that support of that team and everything, I think whatever we get next is just going to continue to be incredible.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he knows how to surprise us. And I think there's a reason why adventure games tend to be like the game of the year. When we play games, we want to explore. We want to be surprised by areas. And he does that better than anyone else, really. The games are always surprising, always filled with cool stuff to find and kind of talk about, like all the schoolyard stories, like did you what happens when you go over here? All of that is front and center with his games.
Yeah.
He recreated the Legend of Zelda 1986 experience of going to the schoolyard, talking with your friends. It feels like that. Like you're gathering together around the campfire.
Alex, were you even alive when that game came
out?
out?
That's what I'm trying to
say. Elu was like 3 months from retirement when that game came out.
That was close.
When that game launched, that was something, though. Yeah, you're right. Well, guys, I mean, that's the majority of what I wanted to talk about. Are there any aspects you haven't touched on? Anything else you want to say specifically about Shadow or ER?
Favorite boss battles?
Too many dragons.
Too many dragons. I want to hear everybody's favorite bosses. That's a good one.
Favorite boss. That's a good one. Yes. Go. Who wants to go?
I'll go first. Mother Fingers.
Okay.
The Mother of Fingers? Okay.
I hated that boss, Mikkel. Hated her.
That's why.
Mine was the night goal, the first guy we ran into when you came right into the DLC.
Oh, the mausoleum, the first mausoleum. Yeah.
Because I couldn't use my mimic, and I fought that guy for 4 days.
There you go. Love it. I love it.
4 days. That determination.
Yeah, but when you beat him, I bet you screamed out.
You threw a parade, didn't you?
I don't think the loot I got was that impressive from him. So I'm just like,
it's a bunch of heavy stuff. Yeah. But man, that's awesome.
For me, my favorite boss was Mesmer. I think that was like the coolest spectacle and like a really fun design. And one kind of gripe that I didn't get to is, and I know there's lore reasons for this, yada yada whatever. I didn't actually like how Radahn was the last boss because it felt recycled from the main game. I know he has someone on his back now. He's not on a horse, someone's on him. It's like reversed, and he has a different moveset. And he was awesome. The spectacle was great, the combat was great, but it felt recycled. And when I beat him, I was like, oh shoot, that was the end, because I thought it was like the penultimate boss. So again, the game is still amazing. I want to make that clear. Everybody in the comments, the game is amazing. I love it. I love Elden Ring. But I think a boss like Mesmer probably should have been the last boss, and I think that's why I like that fight so much.
The fact that you said he had someone on his back, I think just took a little piece of
Mikola, I know who it is. Okay, I'm not that.
His husband or future husband, or whatever.
But yeah, I think Mesmer was dope, and I was not expecting like snakes on a plane to happen, and it was just so cool.
I'm scared of snakes on this motherfucker.
I think my honorable mention was Radahn. I actually thought it was cool that they brought that from the original game, because I thought he was like a cool character that I was like, man, I did think at one time it would be cool to see what he was like in his prime, because I feel like I never got that experience. And of course, because I knew he was the last boss, and like that when you can see his health getting low enough, and I was like, oh God, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. And then I die. Right. Like I think there's just something about when you finally beat him and you're like, oh God, it is done. Like I am the Elden Lord once again. But my favorite one was actually Bale. I
Thank you.
thought
Yes.
that fight, the build up of going up the mountain, because after you fight like the freaking ancient dragon again, and I was like, oh god, this is gonna be horrible. And then of course having Igon there with you yelling the whole time. I used my mimic as well. So 3 of us going at Bale together, because he was also one of the first bosses in this game that I really felt after only like 5 or 6 deaths where I really saw the patterns. And again, because this was my first really FromSoft experience, like it was really, I felt empowered because I was like, oh my god, I like see it, like, and I felt like Neil, where I was like, oh, here comes this, and like a dodge roll, and then you can hit him. Like that was just such a cool experience and an awesome boss, dude. Like I love that fight a lot.
He was my second boss or third one, because I kind of did the thing with Ains, so just like let's explore.
Let's go right.
Yeah, let's go right. Here's the dragon cave, and then the big climb to the mountain, and the fact that you can get the weapon that can help you a lot, like in the fight with the big katana. With the great sword katana is so cool, and the one you get that shoots a laser, and getting to like coordinate that with your mimic while Egon is like screaming and shooting the great arrows, and then he's still flying around, and then like all this magma electricity or whatever that thing was, like blinding you, and then you kind of getting like the iframe dodge from him, or he just like straight up like Radon, like meteor hits you kind of in that style. It's like such a cool boss fight. Like I thought that was the boss fight you had mentioned, Ains, because you had said that you had found a hard one like randomly, and because that was the one that I found randomly, and turns out it was Midra. The one
it was Midra, yeah. Who I would probably say Midra was my favorite one. Partly because it kicked my ass so bad because I got there so early, but I really like the fact that that whole section of the game was unique. Tied to the whole frenzied flame thing. It was very dark, which I always love, right? That's what I love most about Bloodborne, despite some other things I don't like as much about Bloodborne. But like the darkness and just that nature of it was fantastic. And him as a boss, like the whole, like, when you're playing a FromSoft game, right? And the boss, and you walk in there and the dude's, I forget what he says, the script, right? But I've watched that cutscene a ton of times, and he's sitting there and he just runs at you, this little dude, right? And you hit him and you take off like a third of his health in one hit, and you're like, oh, okay, this is going to be a problem in a minute, because they're setting me up, and then you go through that amazing cutscene, and then that battle's tough, especially if you get there early. And I just thought he was very unique, very cool, and it tied to one of the, I would say, lesser known aspects of the core game, right? That story of the frenzied flame and all that stuff, the 3 fingers and everything. Like, I think that was cool. They added that whole section for that culmination. Was neat. Eric, to your point, I was going to say it's funny that you chose Radon as disappointing, because it kind of goes back to what we were talking about. Like, there's obviously huge story implications, right, as to why he's the last boss, why he's the king's consort, Miquella on his back, or Miquella. I always say Miquella on his back. So I found that very cool. But to your point, if you're someone who's only played Elden Ring, you're not really into the lore, you're not following all the details of the story, right? All you see is, I got to fight Radon again. He's different, but I got to fight him, as a character again. I could see why that would be like, oh, well, okay.
Yeah, it feels bad to say disappointing. I don't know if I would go as far. It's just like a minor gripe. Because he, like, I posted this in the chat, but he was my favorite fight from the main game. He's one of my favorite characters. I don't watch all of Vati's videos, but I did watch some of them, so I did kind of know a little bit. I just, for this epic like expansion that I spent 50 hours in, everything is like so awesome. The finale of that, for it to be someone that I've already fought before, that aspect of it, regardless of how much it makes sense in the story, was a little bit of a letdown, because even like his name being consort of, I thought that kind of implied that he was like the penultimate boss, and so yeah, I would have preferred Mesmer or something like of that scale after Radon. That's just my 2 cents.
I think that was kind of like the cool thing, because it's kind of like a subversion. You thought Mesmer was gonna be the final boss. He's in the freaking art.
Yeah, like, he's the statue.
But no, it's like I would have agreed with that had Nicola not been there for the second part of like the boss fight.
If it was just Radon, I'd agree too.
That recontextualized like what that was, and even though I didn't know about like the entire messed up background until then, I went to see a video about like how everything connected, and Mog may not be a pedo. Who knows? Like depending on like the things that he did to Miquella, or Miquella forced him to do it, and then following that thread and then understanding, like going back to the first trailer where you saw the Melania and Radon fighting, like in that 2019 trailer, like following that thread, like when you catch that is like really cool. Why that ended up being like the final boss fight.
Did you catch that though right before you were fighting him, or after?
Whenever Mikala like jump in, I was like,
when you went to phase 2, I knew it right away. Yeah. But then I follow all this stuff, right? Like I've really dug into it. So yeah. And like, you know why, like he's hanging on him, right? Like he can't, which also there's a reason for that. And I also thought it was kind of a cool, maybe homage, maybe not, but kind of a cool, it made me think of the Twin Princes from Souls 3, which kind of had a similar type of thing too, so yeah, but I get it. I think Mesmer, to your point, Eric, Mesmer as a pure fight mechanically, I think was incredible. I think that's a really, really well designed, like pinnacle of from design boss. Mesmer is fantastic.
Yeah, which is that's what I was mostly basing it off of.
Yeah. So for me, my honorable mention was the Erdtree avatar. I really enjoyed that. Having all the different phases was something they kept on adding. I actually really enjoyed that because it kicked my tail for a while there, and then it just like clicked, and then I was like, okay, bring it on. And so it got to the point where I could do that in my sleep, getting through that, and I really enjoyed that, the area, so I like that one. My favorite, I'm gonna give it to the dancing lion. I mean, I know that's
nice.
Early on, but I loved the spectacle of that fight. It was really cool. I really enjoyed seeing that, especially early on. I was like, okay, this is what I'm dealing with now in this deal. I really enjoyed that.
That arena, and especially the second phase with all his different type of effects, like the different. So he's who they had me fight in LA when I previewed the game. And they said, do you want to have him, and they give you a pre-made character. It wasn't my build. The layout was different. And like I told these guys at SG, I was like, I fought this one big boss and he just destroyed me. I think they gave me 3 chances and I did okay. But when I played him in this game with my build, like he wasn't that hard, because you have the summon and you have your Ash and everything. But it was still, from a spectacle perspective, fantastic.
Sure.
By the way, the music of this expansion is like
crazy. It's crazy. So I have it downloaded because the CE came. I don't know why they do this, but the CE came with a download. I wish I could just play it on my normal stuff, but I have it downloaded on my PC, so I'll have it playing when I'm working sometimes. But it's incredible. If you didn't see, they posted a clip of the symphony today on Twitter. From a clip from the Rihanna. I always forget her name.
Relana, because there's Renala.
Renala was
in the original
Academy.
Yeah. Rolana from her fight, and it's just
it wouldn't be a George R.R. Martin thing if there weren't like at least 2 or 3 people that had the exact same names. Aegon, Aemond.
Yeah. Mikkel, did you give yours your favorite boss yet?
Yeah, I did, but
he hasn't finished it fully yet.
I'm like 2 bosses away from finishing
from Glory.
DLC. Yes. One thing I will say is, like, I do like that there are certain bosses, like I'll say Lamenter, that are, a walk in a park, and it's like the game being like, okay, we've kicked their ass enough. Here's the freebie. Just go wreck. Yeah, just go wreck this boss. And it's like I'm grateful that they do that, because otherwise it's like, man, I'm struggling the whole way through.
Sure.
He gives you such a cool item too. There's a couple cool ones like that in the expansion. The one where you can turn into a dragon too, again, took me back to Souls 3. That's really neat. Just having those capabilities, really cool.
By the way, who here used the turkey leg or tested the turkey leg?
I didn't. Nope. Didn't test.
I don't know if I did.
Yeah, it was the blood fiend arm. I think is what it was called. It was like it was actually really broken. If you put the bleed effect in it, that if you did like the super strong attack, it would like be the equivalent of 4 strong like bleed. The bleed attacks that would like melt out. Yeah, so it was like super OP.
Okay.
It's already nerfed. So if you didn't do that,
of course, they always do balance. Yeah. So. Well, boys, what do you think? Any last comments?
Sad it's over.
Yeah.
So I finished Shadow. I went back. I was at the Fire Giant in the main game on this playthrough. So then I beat Fire Giant. I beat Malakath. I beat. I'm literally at Elden Beast right now in the main game, and I've done every area, top to bottom, Millennia, and everything. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, now I don't know what to play. Like, you know, I'm just like sitting there like, oh no, this game's not doing it for me. You try to play other stuff and I'm like, nah, this isn't it. So
Hop on the Monster Hunter.
It actually made me give Dark Souls 2 another chance. I hated that game, and because I'm still like fiending, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do the one that I still haven't beaten.
That bad. Come on,
I liked it, especially the remaster or whatever, the re-release. I loved it. I thought it was great. It was the first one you could play at 60 on console.
And with the expansions are actually really good in that game too. It's like the first several hours I didn't really get into it, but it gets better later on.
It has some cool areas. There's some really cool art direction in that game. It really does.
I like the Majula in that one, but I was like, it's hard going from 1 and 3 and then try 2 because the feel of the feel is so different in that one. So especially even coming from Elden Ring, but again, if you're kind of like in the mood, you kind of like click. So I'm enjoying it more right now. So let's see if I can beat it. So.
Nice. All right. Well, let me chat. You've been great. Anyone watching this later, thanks for hanging out with us. Go ahead and go around here to everyone and let them say their piece. So I'll go around in this circle. So Alex, I'll start with you.
Yeah, you can find me at _Dro on Twitter and also at Alejandro_Segovia93 on Instagram/threads. And then you can read all my reviews for this year over at seasongaming.com, where I've done 7 so far. So
nice. Yeah, you're knocking them out. You'll probably pick it up later in the year too.
Yeah.
Bacon?
You can find me at XBaconGaming on Twitter, or X as it's called nowadays. And then every Thursday night, me and my boy Chapo, Dan, and Chance, we do our little our itty bitty podcast, the Nerd Chat, where we talk all things gaming, food, in the good old days. We're more Xbox, but we're PC. But I make fun of PlayStation a lot, so come hang out.
And Jose, you could add to that.
So I'm a Chipotle Bear everywhere, man. I just want to take a second with my time and say thank you to Elu and Alex. I always heard your names again. It was great to put a face to a name. Mikkel saw you earlier on Season Gaming, and Eric staying with you guys, and of course Ains. Like, really appreciate the time, man. Like, we just love games, and as older men, right, is not necessarily a lot of people in our circles in our where we say seasoned. There we go. To do that, and so it's just nice to be in a community of people that are like-minded and have fun. And again, Ains, we really appreciate, man. It's just like Bacon said, we're a small podcast, man. We're not doing this because it's our career. We just like to play games and talk about it. So if you're interested, check us out Thursday nights. Otherwise, thank you all so much for having us, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Of course, yeah. No, I love you guys, and if you're watching this later, definitely check these guys out. Like Bacon and Jose said, it's just talking about games for the passion of it, which is why we should be doing this, in my opinion. So good times. So thank you guys. Hilo.
Hi. Yeah, it's all about the passion. I just want to piggyback off of that. That's why we love FromSoft Games, I think, because it's obvious that they're passionate about their games. So I'm Elu Spook everywhere. Wherever you find me online, that's going to be my name. I'm the editor of Season Gaming. I'm always writing, always just hanging out in all the chats for Bigcast and all that. So yeah, always good to see all of you guys. I'm going to echo what Jose just said. I love seeing all the faces of you fine gentlemen, and yeah, we're all in it for the passion. Great meeting you guys, and great time tonight.
Awesome. Yeah. And for those of you who do hang out with Season Gaming often, especially if you read our reviews or anything on the site, the reason that stuff is so well written is because of Elu. It's this guy right there. He is our lead editor, and he's the best at it. So that's why our stuff is the way it is. We wouldn't be the same without him. So yeah, we got to get you on camera more, man.
He edits every single.
He literally edits everything. No doubt. Yep.
Yeah. And I avoid cameras like the plague, but yep, I'm here
tonight. All right. My favorite man from Hawaii over here. Fantastic content creator. Wow. We need more people checking him out as well. Michael, please go ahead.
Hi. Well, thank you again for letting me be on this podcast here, this roundtable. I'm Mikkel Casanova. You can catch me on all social media platforms at Mikkel Casanova. And other than that, host of Hawaii's #1 podcast, Casanova Podcast. And I what I love about this is the fact that I get to meet other people who just have a passion for gaming, because I feel like, especially when you're doing content creating, you find a lot of people don't have that passion and can take it out of you. And this right here is just really rejuvenating for me. So thank you again, Ains, for letting me be part of this. Thank you, everyone who's been on this panel, this roundtable. This has been absolutely phenomenal.
Great.
Likewise.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Eric, round us out, man.
Yeah, I'm Eric. I also somehow am allowed to write for Season Gaming. You can find me over on Twitter at GamePositiveYT. You can also find me on YouTube at GamePositiveYT. I have a small YouTube channel where I post very occasionally. I do have one small closing thought about Elden Ring I want to say, just because it will make Ains a little bit mad. I think that player agency is the key aspect of why Elden Ring is so good. I think we had a long period of the dark times of games where they held our hands too much. And I think Breath of the Wild really opened the door to show that a game can be uber successful and provide the player with lots of agency. And I think games like Elden Ring kind of were slightly at least inspired by that. And right now we are 2 years into the development cycle of games that are being developed in a post Elden Ring world. So I think we have a lot to look forward to.
Good point.
Yeah, so Eric used to be at Season Gaming. You can find him.
Ains collected all 1 million Korok seeds, and he's
oh my god, yeah, no, I think everyone knows my
Little known fact, yeah.
Some of the
my
things that
distaste
Wild,
for Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Breath of the Wild is the greatest 7 out of 10 game that was being called a 10. I agree with that statement, Eric.
I never said anything about 10s. I just said player agency.
Yep.
No.
Do not let the Nintendo fans hear you say that.
Yeah.
Hey, I never said it wasn't either. I'm just saying.
No, and
it definitely has player agency. You can walk around and find nothing for hours. It's awesome.
Yeah, Elden Ring evolved that. I said, why don't we add tons of stuff?
Yeah,
that works.
Anyway, it's been a good show until now. Let's not ruin it. Anyway, you know where to find me. I'm not gonna spiel, guys. Thank you all for hanging out with me tonight. It's been a lot of fun. I think we need to do this more often. Let's get together as a group and talk about big releases and just kind of BS. It's a good time. So
Sweet.
Thank you all, everyone, for hanging out with us. Like I said, if you're checking this out later, just appreciate shares, the usual nonsense. But thanks for hanging out always. Thanks for checking out Season Gaming, and stay tuned as always. Bitcast is back this Sunday. We do have a lot of reviews coming up in the second half of the year. We're actually kind of tripping over ourselves with how many games we're going to be checking out. So if you check those out, we always appreciate it. Other than that, we will see you next time. Cheers.
Hasta la vista, baby.